Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Planes, Trains, and Comic Books channel. My name's Matt, and today we're going to review the 90s epic Batman Knightfall. But before we get into that, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing, subscribing, all that good stuff, it really helps me out and lets me know what you guys want to see more of. So with that being said, let's get straight into this thing. Batman Knightfall. This is a big epic series that came out between 1993 and 1994, and it involved Batman and the characters Bane and Azrael. Those were brand new characters, and Bane was created specifically for this story arc, as was Azrael. So if you don't know who those characters are, check them out. They're pretty awesome. I will say Bane is much cooler. I remember him when I was a little kid from the movies, from the Batman and Robin movie, and then also the Batman animated series. He was in that. So this Bane is a little bit different from those ones, but we'll get into it deeper in a little bit. So, but what is Batman Knightfall? It is a series that went on across all the Batman books, but specifically mostly Detective Comics and Batman, its own title. And then as it gets through, there's three parts to it. So there's Batman Knightfall, which is like the build up to the big fight between Batman and Bane. And then there's Knight's Quest, which is Bruce Wayne having to recover from that fight, and Azrael taking over for Batman and descending into crazy violence and madness during that time. And then Knight's End is when Bruce Wayne comes back to reclaim the Batman mantle from Asbat, as they call him, but Azrael. And Azrael has gone full-blown like murderer by now, and he basically there just has to be an epic fight with Bruce Wayne taking back the mantle of Batman. That is the main story arc overall for the 3 volumes. I say 3 volumes because they just released in the last like 5 years full complete like floppy cover, like soft covers that are newspaper print of the entire series. So you don't have to go find the really expensive omnibuses or try to figure out, because they also have at the same time the trades of each individual like little story arc in there, and it's almost impossible to find them and also figure out which one comes first and all that. So I would suggest just getting Knightfall Volume 1, Knight's Quest Volume 2, and Knight's End Volume 3. And that is the best way to read it overall. Knightfall, I guess, was a brainchild of Chuck Dixon and Denny O'Neil. And so the main writers of all those books are Chuck Dixon, Alan Grant, Doug Monch, and Dennis O'Neil. I gotta say, the biggest hit against this series is the art, not the main art. Like there's great artists like Graham Nolan on it, like on the main title of Batman, and then you have amazing covers by Kelly Jones that are like fucking awesome. But then the biggest problem is Shadow of the Bat, I think. You have Shadow of the Bat in the middle of mixed into this, and the writing's okay. I mean, it's whatever, but the art is just not up to par with those titles, with the main Batman titles, or with like even Catwoman or Robin. I mean, Robin has like Phil Jimenez. I'm like, okay, he's popular now, he's big now, and then and then like but he did great work back then too. And then also you have Jim Ballant on Catwoman, and so like the art from those people are way better than the art from whoever was on. It goes between a couple people, but whoever was on Shadow of the Bat. But for the most part, the art is fairly steady and good. I mean, you can tell when another artist takes over, but it's still good. Like they keep all the continuity of whatever the last people did, because I gotta say there's a lot of costume changes in this, and no one ever seemed to mess it up with the order of reading. So Asbat, as they call Azrael Batman, didn't have a different costume because he would like upgrade his costume every couple of issues and add more things to it. And so the writers of the other series had to keep up with that as well. So Knightfall is the first volume. So we'll cover that story arc real quick. Knightfall is Bane has come to Gotham. If you don't know who Bane is, he was first came out in Vengeance of Bane #1, which was a one-shot. They told his story. They kind of set him and Azrael up about 5 months before this story arc started. So what they did was They did the one shot of Bane, and then they did a 4-issue miniseries of Azrael. That was by Denny O'Neil and Joe Quesada. And they just establish those characters, and then they have them come into the Bat world. So from Detective Comics and Batman, the main books. And that's what Knightfall covers, just Batman and Detective Comics. There's no other mixing of the other titles in that, and which is one of the reasons why I think Knightfall as a storyline is so strong. I'm going to rate these individually as their own volumes, because as an overall series, I think it gets hurt by some of the middle parts, but individually the books are stronger. So Bane, he was born an orphan in a prison in South America, and grew up there. And then he basically became a badass, and then he was used as like super soldier person, like test subject. And so that's why he's got his muscles and the whole venom serum and all that. They use that to make him super strong. And then, but beyond that, because he grew up not strong like that, he is a master tactician. So that is like Bane's biggest thing, is he's not just a big guy with muscles. He's also like a master tactician. He's going to be 10 steps ahead of you all the time. So basically, he comes into Gotham, he hears about it, and he's like, I'm going to take out the Batman. I'm going to become the king of Gotham, and it will be mine. Him and his goons come up with a scheme to basically wear down Batman. They just throw so much shit at him that he can't keep up. He gets sick in a couple, for a couple issues, and then that makes it so he can't recover, and he's just getting hurt, and he can't recover in between. Because normally, he'll fight Joker. He comes home, Alfred, gives him a bath or whatever. They wrap him up, and he's a couple days later, he's got some rest. He's good to go. But he doesn't get any of that. So he comes home and he's cut up. Well, then 5 minutes later, they got to go do something else. So he has people like Killer Croc and Scarecrow and Mad Hatter and stuff. And he has them attack Batman like one after the other. So he can't rest. And then he breaks everybody that's in Arkham out, which creates even more chaos, so that everybody is out. And now Batman can't recover for sure. Like, he's just full out, not able to recover from capturing each of these bad guys. Basically, the pinnacle of this comes as we're seeing Bane has been trying to wear Batman out so that when he comes to fight him, there is not really going to be a fight. He's going to be able to take on Batman no problem and crush him. So what he does is, he does that basically. He takes Batman on and he breaks his back. And that is pretty much exactly where Knightfall ends, Volume 1, and Knight's Quest begins. So in the middle of Knightfall, they kind of had the introduction of Azrael. He's helping Batman out a little bit, to pick up the slack in between, being not able to recover and all the bad guys fighting and all that stuff. So, of course, Robin is there. They got Tim Drake as Robin, and then Nightwing is there sometimes as well, depending on what's going on. But for sure, you got Robin, and then Azrael's helping out. And so Azrael, the history of Azrael, if you don't know that character, he is a kid named John Paul Valley. He's a dorky looking kid. He's got long hair and glasses, and he looks like Kurt Cobain or something, but like a nerdy Kurt Cobain. Basically, his dad and his lineage is part of this Order of Saint Dumas. And so it is like a sect of the Crusaders from back in the day who fought in the Middle East and everything. And they broke off and they started their own sect. They then have all these secrets and everything. They're kind of like a secret society, kind of backing different powers and stuff around the world. But Azrael, the character Azrael, is something that's passed down from generation to generation. So it's like their assassin. So when shit goes wrong or they need someone out of the way, they get Azrael. He's like the assassin of the church, and he goes and takes out these people. Well, he gets killed right away. The older Azrael gets killed right away, and that's Jean Paul Valley's dad. So he ends up revealing himself to Jean Paul, because Jean Paul doesn't know any of this. So apparently, until you're dying or whatever, none of this is revealed to you. But he has been training his son secretly, like through, I guess, cues and weird things that they call it the system. They're like going around, like, where, like, oh, he's eating breakfast, he'll tell him, oh, why don't you eat it with your hand on this side and your spoon in this hand or whatever, and that eventually will train him to be able to handle a sword better or whatever. So like shit like that, like just programming him through little things throughout his childhood and adolescence that eventually will lead to him being like a badass assassin. So that has happened. He reveals himself to Jean-Paul Valley Jr., the son. Then he's like, you have to take up my mantle. And so he does. He becomes the assassin of the Order of St. Dumas. So that's what he does at first. And he has a little tiff with Batman, but then Batman and him become friends. This is from the original. There was a mini series that came out before all of Nightfall and everything that clarified this. It was called The Sword of Azrael. It was 4 issues. That was written by Denny O'Neil and the art was by Joe Quesada. And it's a fun little miniseries that introduces this character. So by the time Nightfall happens, Jean-Paul is Azrael. He is helping out Batman around, for whenever he needs because he hasn't had time to rest or anything. So then Batman gets his back broken. Knight's Quest starts. Batman or Bruce is like, hey, I can't fight as Batman. My back is fucked. He gets all like mopey and shit, which is weird. But he's like, I need you to take over, Jean-Paul. You are an adult. You've been helping out. Like Tim likes you. Tim can help you out with like all the stuff at the Batcave and everything. And you seem to like have the skills, like that assassin training is all you need to like become Batman kind of thing. Azrael starts and he does, fine. And then slowly he starts to devolve until originally his main goal was to get Bane and kick him out because he had taken over. He's like the crime lord now. So he had to work his way up by taking down lower criminals. Like there's a guy named Tallyman he has to fight. He takes on the Joker. He takes on Catwoman. There's some people that he takes on just to kind of like get his feet wet as Batman. And every time he kind of realizes like, oh, I need to like step up a bit. So he starts off in like I will say fairly normal for the time Batman costume. It's a little bit more crazy than Batman's, but not too much. Then he's like, oh, I need to up my costume because that'll help. Because his Azrael costume is pretty crazy. He's got like a big hood and he's got these fucking gauntlets that have knives and he's got a giant sword and his gauntlets spit fire out and all this stuff. So, and they also have like claws or whatever. So he's like, oh, I can like kind of do that to Batman. So he takes the costume of Batman and he like basically gives him like a whole like mantle that he sits on himself on his shoulders and chest. And that's the first costume. And he also gives himself like gauntlets that have like sharp fingers or whatever. And so he's fighting, the bad guys now, and he's got a better chance. He shoots batarangs out of his hands now, his gauntlets. So, it's more like his style of fighting. But he starts to devolve further and further, especially after he eventually does take Bane and he fights him and beats him after like a couple times of trying, I believe. And after that, he just starts to devolve. Like he starts having visions of, it's basically like his mind is fighting to become Batman and like stay true to Bruce's vision, but also to stay true to his dad. And then also to stay true to like Saint Dumas. And he's having visions of like Saint Dumas and fire and all this stuff. And it's just like, it's basically like he's schizophrenic. Like the system has broken his brain. And so he's got too many characters going on. Once Batman came in the mix, it just kind of threw everything out of order. And he doesn't know who he wants to be. But basically this makes it so he becomes a very violent Batman. So he starts, beating the shit out of people without even questioning them. This continues to escalate and Robin sees it and Robin tries to like check him, but that ain't happening. So he basically tells Robin to fuck off and you're not allowed in the Batcave anymore. And he's like, if I see you again, like I'll kill you. Like he just goes crazy on him. Azbat is going around and he's escalating to a point where he's finally after an actual serial killer that gets out named Abattoir. This serial killer goes on the loose, starts killing people. He has someone tied up in like a secret like machine that's going to kill them, and he only knows where they are. And instead of trying to find said person, he just lets the guy die, and he lets Abattoir die while he fights him. And then also because he does that, he lets the guy who was trapped in the like Saw scenario, that guy dies too. And so now he's killed someone or he's let someone die and there's no going back. So he decides his next person needs to be the next person he goes after is the person who killed his dad. So he starts tracking down the guy who killed his father. And in the meantime, Robin now has contacted Bruce and is like, you need to get back here. Bruce has been in England. His back got healed. He's able to walk and stuff, but he's not trained or anything yet. But Tim Drake's like, you need to come back. Something's wrong with Azrael. Like, this is bad. And Nightfall begins. So Bruce is now back in the city. He calls, a Bat family, together, and he's got Nightwing there. He's got Robin. He tells Nightwing, hey, I need you and Robin to kind of do my job while I retrain how to become Batman. Because yes, his back is now okay, but he lost all his muscle memory and his strength and all that stuff. So he's got to get that back. How he does that, he goes to Lady Shiva, who is, as we know from her job teaching the Question in the 80s, the best person to train you to become a badass fighter. So she trains Batman. She trains him to finally get to the level where he was before his back was broken. In the meantime, Azbat is going around, like I said, tracking this dude down. Catwoman's in the mix a little bit. She's helping Nightwing and Robin fight him and all this stuff. So, but Azrael's dead set on getting this guy that killed his father. And then who shows up? But Bruce. There's like a big buildup to the final kind of battle. And they do have a final battle, but it doesn't end like you think. There's more of like he basically, Azrael has like a mental breakdown during the fight and realizes, oh, I fucked up or whatever. I gotta go. And so that's how Batman defeats him. It's not really like he does need to fight him a little bit, but there's not some giant epic fight. There is a small fight that ends up with Azrael going crazy and like his personalities coming out and fighting each other, and then him end up having to realize that what he did, and he feels shame, so he like runs away. So that is the main story arc. Overall, this series is fantastic. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of fun history of Batman to read and continuity and everything. Like I said, I'm going to rate them individually because there's little things in each one that are kind of interesting or different. So Knightfall itself, that one's got really good continuity. It's really tight and the art is good pretty much throughout. The only problem with the art I have is just, I think whatever was standard for DC back then, like the Batmobile looks terrible. I don't know who designed that Batmobile, but it is dog shit. And so, but other than that, everything was fine in Knightfall. So I'm going to give Knightfall as a solid run, an 8 out of 10. Then we hit Knight's Quest. And I got to say, this one, I would read one issue and fall asleep halfway through and really push to finish that issue. And then I would just mark it. I put a bookmark in and fall asleep. But by the end of it, the very end, it picks up. So like maybe like 3/4 of it is like hard to get through. Then it starts to pick up as he devolves in madness and Bruce Wayne comes back. So I'm going to give Knight's Quest a 6 out of 10. And then Knight's End, like I said, it starts to pick up at the end of Knight's Quest, and then Knight's End just continues. So it just picks up more and more and more until you finally get to that big ending. The only thing that wasn't satisfying was the battle between Azrael and him. I expected that to be like a bigger, more epic thing. And because he just kind of, Azrael just has his little mental breakdown at the end, it kind of fizzles out for me a bit. But and it was okay. It was fine. That just, I think by then we're all like, okay, Azrael, you need to go home now. So I'm going to give that book a 7. So we got an 8, a 6, and a 7, which is fairly good for a series that runs that long. But just overall, it's a solid run. It's just that middle part is it slows down to a halt. I think that's everything I can say about Batman Knightfall. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you guys on the next one.